I am Jake.
And I'm Marlin.
AKA Guy, and welcome to another Fresh Thoughts review. We're fresh from the movie theater, and we just got back from seeing Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. One of the most hyped up films of the year, and it's already broken many box office records, next to Barbie, but yeah. And I guess a good place to start would be, what did you think of the film?
I liked that it was very, very detailed on what happened, how he progressed, and how he threw the story of his personal life and his work on the bomb.
This was an interesting film for me to watch, but honestly, I don't think it's a movie that I'm really interested in ever really going back to. I mean, I watched this and I thought, there's some great ideas here, there's definitely great story here, and I don't think this is a bad film per se, but the execution of said story was a bit of a mess in my opinion, and
it was very detailed, and one thing it made it not easy for me is Christopher Nolan's, he likes to tell things out of sequence, and it was hard for me to keep jumping into sequence where I should, and so you had to work at it. It made you work to get to it.
yeah, and I've seen enough Nolan films to know that that's his style, and I liked it with Following, Memento, Inception, but here it was a little more jumbled at times. Oppenheimer is a 3-hour movie, and
Is it ever?
it doesn't drag, but here's the thing. For a 3-hour film, this movie has a really rapid editing pace to it. I like the story, I like the angles that they're going for in many scenes, but this is a drama. Like, this movie's a drama.
Definitely.
But it feels like it's edited like an action film, just with how quick and fast everything goes, how intense the shots are, and the music. The music, I'm sure it sounds great on its own, but after a while, honestly, the music kind of annoyed me, just for the fact that it never stopped.
It never stopped, but it was a lot louder than it needed to be in some scenes, that's for sure.
Yeah, like we have a scene of Oppenheimer just walking down a street, and you could swear that was the music that they were going to play when the bomb finally went off. And yeah, the basic premise, it's about Oppenheimer, the guy who helped make the atom bomb, and it's like that's what it was marketed as. The first hour of this film is primarily about his life before he became part of the Manhattan Project, and part 2 is Act 2 is mostly about that, and then Act 3, a lot of it is really devoted to him being suspected of and interrogated on whether or not he could be trusted with secrets, whether or not he was a communist or some shit like that.
Yeah, a lot of people were questioning his security qualifications and so on and so forth. It was a very dramatic section of the movie that showed just how the politics and the world politics changed, and it became beneficial for other people in the government or in government agencies to begin to shadow his performance and start to throw dirt on it. And it was back in the days where if you just said communist, then you were suspicious of being anti-American.
Yeah, and the first hour of this film, I really didn't get into it. I honestly didn't like it, and like the movie was marketed about them making the atom bomb, and it's interesting again that I was expecting there to be some parts covering his life, but they covered like a good chunk of the film is about his personal life, and honestly, watching it the way they executed it, I really didn't give a shit about any of that. I didn't care about the woman he was with, who he was married to, his college days, where we get this weird scene where he apparently tries to kill someone and then has an attack of conscience. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, the whole thing was just kind of out there. And when Matt Damon enters as General Graves, I believe.
I can't even remember right now.
When he enters the picture, that's when the film really started to get a bit better. And Matt Damon, he was kind of the surprising actor for me in this. Like, I liked him, like his character could be a jerk, but I liked him pretty much from his first scene, and he was the most entertaining for me to watch throughout the film.
Yes, he was. Matt Damon did a fine job on this. He really did. And he was one of the, I think there were only, to my mind, 3 characters that the film gave full character development to. Matt Damon, and of course Oppenheimer himself, and then right now I can't even come up with the name of the head of the...
Louis Strauss?
Yeah, Strauss, there you go.
Played by Robert Downey Jr.
And you wouldn't know it if you didn't know it. He was excellent.
Yeah, I thought he gave a very good performance, but at the same time, I kind of think he was a little wasted in this film.
Well, it just depends on what you like. If you like something about government and government intrigue and all that kind of thing.
No, I do. It's the style. They just kept cutting back. There was so little of him until the end. And the thing with Robert Downey Jr. and particularly Cillian Murphy, who plays Oppenheimer. We get so much of them throughout this film, but with Strauss, until the end, the last 30 minutes is where the film really started to sort of come together a little better than it had. There are 2 major parts of this film that really made the cinematic experience worth it. One was the scene where they set off the bomb for the first time. The build-up to that explosion was masterful. It was amazing. Like you know it's gonna happen, but you're just waiting, and when it actually
you should see it for the 3 hours just for that. Well done.
Yeah, just the execution. It goes off, but not how you expect, and that scene alone was just beautiful. And the parts of Oppenheimer being interrogated and everyone he knows being interrogated, that section in the last 30 minutes I thought was reasonably solid. But here's the thing, the stuff with Oppenheimer and the anti-communism stuff, that almost feels like an entirely different movie from what they're trying to tell about the Manhattan Project.
Yes, they were just... I think it was the contrast that they were trying to show. America's greatest, on the cover of Time magazine, to somebody now who can't even get a security clearance to work on government projects. And what dirt was done to him to make that happen.
And Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer, I really don't know what to say about him. He had a few decent moments, but I don't know. Cillian Murphy's somebody who kind of he's got a freakish look about him, the way his face is shaped. I don't know, I just found it a bit too distracting at times, and the way they portray Oppenheimer here just makes him look like a fucking loon, pretty much. Like, there are several scenes where it's implied that he is hallucinating, like he's imagining stuff that's not really there. We get these scenes of him imagining people being incinerated.
Dream segments, but they also show interruption. He's in the middle of another scene and they show where his mind is wandering back and forth.
I don't think they're dream sequences. It comes off like he's really seeing the stuff that no one else can see in his head.
A lot of it, yes, but there were some dream sequences where he's waking up out of it. But
it's confusing. And the second build actor of this film was Emily Blunt as his wife, Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
And like Robert Downey Jr., he was given a lot in the last 30 minutes, but Emily Blunt, who I love, but I just feel she was wasted so much. Like, this is a 3-hour film, and Kitty, the wife, she's in it quite a bit throughout, but she only had really one character trait, which was that she was always intense and angry, and the only scene that I thought she was excellent in, where she was allowed to really flex her acting chops, was the scene where she's interrogated. Like,
Yeah.
that was a great scene, and I thought she did extremely well with that.
Yes.
I just wish we had gotten a little more. And the only other actor worth mentioning that was on the poster was Florence Pugh. I don't know how to pronounce her fucking name. Who plays Jean Tatlock, Oppenheimer's somewhat girlfriend that he had before he got married and may or may not have still been involved with. It's unclear in real life, but yeah, she's there, and I guess, again, it's meant to establish his personal life, but again, I just didn't give a shit, and we get this very weird scene where he admits to being with her for a night during the time of the Manhattan Project, and we suddenly, like, we see them in their hotel room, and they're both naked, sitting across from each other, and then they're in the interrogation room, and all of a sudden, we see Oppenheimer naked, her on top of him, they're having sex, and his wife is apparently imagining this, seeing this. It was just so fucking bizarre. I just didn't know what to make of it.
I don't know, depending on how important the scene would be to you as a viewer of this kind of thing, this might have been a spoiler, but...
Gabe, this is a true life story. No one cares about spoilers.
Oh, I don't know.
Honestly, this is a film where I don't really give a fuck what we talk about. Because if anyone who wants to go on Wikipedia and read about this guy will know his life story. I mean, it's about him and making the bomb and his security clearance taken away. That's all public knowledge, so who gives a shit?
You know, but they still wrote a script for it. So, like,
I don't know, just... This movie, it is not close to being one of the worst films I've seen this year, but it was definitely not what I think should have been done. I feel like Nolan's style could have worked here if it had been taken down a little notch. Maybe I could have, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are getting to this. I've not read any reviews because I wanted to not have any influence on how I went into it. But seeing it's how it's gotten a lot of success, I'm sure a lot of people really love it. And if you do like the style, good for you. But I didn't get into it, and there were a few scenes that were definitely best seen on this big cinema screen, but I don't know, because our theater, the one we go to see movies regularly, was denied access to show this film because Universal thought their ticket prices were too low. They wanted a theater with higher prices to pay them, so we had to go to a different theater than the one we're used to, pay a bit more, sit in some very old, not well maintained seats. I'm not sure it was worth it.
okay, I can say it was a very complex story with a lot of characters, a lot of people with historical names, kind of in minutiae, but nonetheless. And I don't think there was enough time developing those individual persons so that they were anything more than a name in and out. And so you didn't get a feel of the things except for 4 or 5 of the main characters. Very complex, and I think if you are a history fan, you will like this. If you're not a history fan, I'm not so sure what it's going to do for you.
I was interested in the history angle, but again, the way it was executed just distracted me from being able to really take it in.
Yeah, it was. I had to work at, okay, where are they now? Were they before the last scene, or
I guess if there's any last things to comment on is Christopher Nolan, when promoting this film, has really hyped on the fact that the atomic explosion was not achieved with any CGI at all. So, I guess a good question to end on is, what did you think of how they executed the explosion?
I think that they used a good method of filming that to get across the impact and the magnitude of it.
Again, as from earlier, I thought it was just beautiful, the way the fires were filmed. It was almost like a hellish ocean, almost. And you already gave your whether or not they should go see it opinion. If you're a Christopher Nolan fan, if you're a history buff, you might get something out of this. I'm not sure, like I decided on a whim to go see this, and I'm not sure it was kind of worth it in the end, but it's always good to check out movies of different kinds, and hope this review was somewhat interesting to watch, and thank you for joining me. I'm glad
I'm glad to do it.
seemed to get a little more from me than I did, and give it this. It was better than Beau is Afraid.
Everything is better.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and before we go on much longer, I will see you again hopefully soon.
Later.